voice. I'm Randy Seaver. I'm traveling in Mexico and I'm staying in a colonial town called Guanajuato in the state of Guanajuato in central Mexico. The lighting is not going to be the very best, and obviously the sound in the background is not going to be the very best since we have a cacophony of dog barking going on. But I thought you would at least like to see a little bit of the background here in Guanajuato. Beautiful little town. Many of the streets are in tunnels under the city, and if you ever have an opportunity to visit here, I strongly suggest that you do that. There's a great deal to see here, and it's the home of the University of Guanajuato that you might find interesting as well. Today, I'd like to just talk to you a little bit about a false accusation that provisionists continue to make, in spite of the fact that I and others continue to tell them that this is not what we believe. Um, and anyone who has ever been a Calvinist would know that this is not what we believe, and yet they continue to perpetuate this lie that we believe that God causes all of the evil that occurs in His world. When we see the word predestined in the New Testament, we need to remember that this term was at least at one time used for drawing a boundary line beforehand. And so, what God has done in predestining all that comes to pass is not to cause all that comes to pass, but to draw a boundary line between what He intends to permit in His world and what He intends to exclude from His world. Anything that will not ultimately bring glory to God, and when we talk about God being glorified, we mean that He is manifesting His glorious attributes. It is not the act itself that glorifies God, but what God does with the act that glorifies Him. That is, it manifests His glory or His attributes. So that if a person commits a wicked act and God judges him, then He is manifesting His holiness and His righteousness in judging that action, and that glorifies Him. If God forgives a transgression, then that magnifies His mercy and His grace, and that glorifies Him. And so, if you wonder how wickedness glorifies God, the answer is it glorifies God because God uses that for a good purpose. I would suggest that you consider Genesis chapter 50 and verse 20, where Joseph says to his brothers, "As for you, you intended evil against me, but God intended it for good to bring to pass as it is this day to save many people alive." And so God permitted all of their wicked actions and had decreed to do so because He had a grander purpose for that. The same thing is true of Isaiah chapter 10. God is using the Assyrians to judge His people, and then He turns around and judges the Assyrian king and his people for what they've done. And so when we talk about God predestining all that occurs, what we are saying is that God has drawn a boundary line between what He is going to either cause or permit in His world and what He is going to restrain and keep from occurring in His world. And everything that occurs in the world, then, God is working together for our good and for His eternal glory. Romans chapter 8 cannot properly be understood if we don't understand that God is in control of all things. That does not mean, and if you listen to a provisionist and they tell you that we believe that God is the one who causes the wicked actions of evil men, then you need to know that they are simply bearing false witness against us. That is simply not what we believe. What we believe is that God has determined to use that which He has decreed to permit in His world to bring everlasting good to us as His chosen people and glory to Himself. And so please don't misunderstand what our doctrine is teaching. I keep getting questions along this line from many people who have listened to provisionists and have swallowed their lies about Calvinists. Um, so just understand that when we talk about God decreeing all that comes to pass, we don't mean that God has determined to cause everything that happens in His world. Another misrepresentation of our view is that we believe that the sovereignty of God means that God is meticulously controlling everything that occurs. That would be the providence of God. The providence of God is the outworking of his eternal decree. The sovereignty of God means that God is the king, the ruler, the sovereign over all his creation, so that God has the right to do with us as he will. And so I just wanted to clear up some of those issues. I'm going to try to deal with them to a greater extent in dealing with Romans chapter 8, verses 28 through 30 in a future video, but I thought today just a short video to give you the experience of seeing Guanajuato might be nice, and I hope it's been enjoyable to you. Well, until next time, may God richly bless you.